June 1942. The Eastern Front. Night. A small biplane glides silently through the darkness. Engine off, no lights, just the sound of wind rushing past fabric wings. Inside, two women, pilot and navigator, both in their early 20s. They're flying a Po-2 biplane, wood and fabric, top speed 94 miles per hour, slower than most cars. No guns, no armor, no radio, no parachutes. Below them, German positions, tanks, artillery, ammunition dumps. The navigator leans out of the open cockpit. Freezing wind. She's holding bombs, literally holding them in her lap. She waits, calculates, then drops them by hand over the side. The pilot slams the throttle forward. The tiny engine roars back to life. They bank hard. German searchlights sweep the sky. Anti-aircraft guns open fire. The biplane climbs, barely. So slow the German gunners can track it. Tracer rounds slice through the fabric wings. But they make it. Disappear into the darkness. The Germans call them Nachthexen, night witches. They fly 8, 10, sometimes 18 missions a night. Every night. For 3 years. By the end of the war, they'll fly over 30,000 combat sorties, drop 23,000 tons of bombs, produce 23 heroes of the Soviet Union. And they'll do it in planes so primitive, so slow, so fragile that the Germans consider shooting them down an insult. This is the story of the 588th Night Bomber Regiment, the only all-female combat unit in World War II. The women who flew obsolete biplanes into hell every single night and terrorized the German army, June 1941. Operation Barbarossa. Germany invades the Soviet Union. The largest military invasion in history. 3 million German soldiers. Thousands of tanks. Thousands of aircraft. The Soviet Union is caught completely by surprise. Within weeks, the German army advances hundreds of miles. Entire Soviet armies are encircled, destroyed, captured. The Luftwaffe dominates the skies. Soviet aircraft are destroyed on the ground or shot down by the hundreds. The Red Army is collapsing. Stalin needs every resource, every weapon, every soldier, and that includes women. Before the war, the Soviet Union had a strong aviation culture. Flying clubs, training programs. Thousands of civilians learned to fly, including women. Marina Raskova was one of them. Famous aviator, navigator. She held multiple long-distance flight records. Celebrity. When the war started, women from across the Soviet Union volunteered. They wanted to fight. To fly combat missions the military refused. Women couldn't serve in combat roles. Traditional thinking, even in the supposedly progressive Soviet Union. Marina Raskova went directly to Stalin. She proposed forming all-female aviation regiments. Pilots, navigators, mechanics, armorers, everything. Entirely staffed by women. Stalin was skeptical, but desperate. He approved it. Order number 0099. Issued October 8, 1941. 3 all-female aviation regiments would be formed. The 586th Fighter Regiment, Flying Yak Fighters, the 587th Bomber Regiment, Flying P-2 Dive Bombers, and the 588th Night Bomber Regiment. Flying Po-2 biplanes. Volunteers flooded in. Thousands of women applied. Pilots, students, factory workers, teachers. They came from every corner of the Soviet Union. Some lied about their age. Some were as young as 17. They wanted to fight. The 588th Night Bomber Regiment formed in October 1941, near the city of Engels on the Volga River. Commander: Major Marina Raskova herself. The women arrived, young, enthusiastic, untested. Most had civilian flying experience. But combat? None. And their aircraft? The Polikarpov Po-2. Let me describe this plane. It's a biplane. 2 wings, open cockpit, wood frame covered in plywood and fabric. Canvas, actually. like a tent, built in 1928, designed as a crop duster and training aircraft, not a bomber. Top speed 94 miles per hour, slower than a modern car on the highway. Maximum altitude, about 10,000 feet. Most missions flown at 3,000 feet or lower. Range 400 miles with a full bomb load. Armament, none initially. Later, some mounted a single machine gun. Some bomb capacity, 6 bombs. Total weight about 350 kilograms. Carried externally under the wings and fuselage. Crew 2, pilot in front. Navigator in rear, no radios. No guns in most aircraft. No armor, no parachutes. Not enough to go around. No instruments for night flying. Just a compass, an altimeter, and a map. This was their weapon. Women trained through the winter of 1941-1942, learning formation flying, navigation, bombing techniques. It was brutal. They flew in temperatures far below freezing. The open cockpits offered no protection. The cold was paralyzing. They wore men's uniforms, too large. They stuffed the boots with rags to make them fit, and they learned to be mechanics. Armorers, ground crew, everything, because the 588th was entirely female. No men, not even support staff. The women loaded their own bombs, repaired their own aircraft, refueled them, rearmed them. By May 1942, they were ready. The regiment deployed to the front, the southern sector, near the Caucasus. Their war was about to begin. May 1942. The 588th arrives at the front. The German army is advancing toward Stalingrad, pushing deep into Soviet territory. The situation is desperate. The women of the 588th receive their first mission briefing. Target: German artillery positions. Time: night. Complete darkness. The crews prepare. Each Po-2 carries 6 bombs. Small but enough to damage equipment, kill soldiers, create chaos. The aircraft take off, one by one, into the black sky. No formation flying. Too dangerous at night in these slow aircraft. Each crew flies alone. Navigation by stars, by landmarks when visible. By instinct, they approach the target. German searchlights sweep the sky. The technique: cut the engine. Glide silently toward the target. The Germans can't hear them coming. Just the wind whistling through the wing struts. The Germans called it the sound of a broomstick. Witches on broomsticks. The navigator drops the bombs by hand. Aims by eye. No bomb sight. Just experience and calculation. The pilot restarts the engine, pulls up, escapes before the Germans can react. But sometimes they don't escape. Senior Lieutenant Yevdokia Bershanskaya commanded the regiment after Raskova transferred to another unit. She was a brilliant tactician, calm under pressure, respected by her pilots. She developed the tactics the Night Witches would use for the rest of the war. Multiple aircraft attacked the same target, waves one after another, never letting the Germans rest. The first aircraft draws the searchlights, gets the Germans' attention. The second and third attack while the Germans are focused elsewhere. It's dangerous, deliberate. The first aircraft is bait, but it works. The Night Witches fly 8 to 12 missions a night, sometimes more. Every single night, land, refuel, rearm, take off again. Repeat until dawn. The ground crews work without stopping, loading bombs, patching holes in the fabric wings, repairing engines. Some nights aircraft return with dozens of holes, fabric shredded, controls barely functional. But they fly again the next night, because the war doesn't stop. June 1942. The regiment's first losses. Lieutenant Irina Kasharina and her navigator are shot down. Direct hit from anti-aircraft fire. The Po-2 explodes in midair. Both women killed instantly. The regiment mourns. These were their friends, sisters. But there's no time for grief. The missions continue. The Germans learn to fear the Night Witches. German soldiers on the ground describe the experience. the eerie whistling sound in the darkness, the inability to see the aircraft, the bombs falling without warning, then the explosions, chaos, fire, death. And just when the attack seems over, another aircraft arrives. Then another. All night long, no sleep, constant terror. The psychological impact is devastating. German commanders offer medals, even Iron Crosses, to any pilot who shoots down a night witch. But the Po-2s are hard to kill. German fighters are too fast. They can't slow down enough to match the Po-2's speed without stalling. When they try, they overshoot. Anti-aircraft guns struggle to track targets so slow and low. The night witches exploit this, flying low, using terrain, changing altitude constantly. They're ghosts. August 1942. The Battle of Stalingrad begins. The night witches are there. Every night they bomb German positions, supply lines, troop concentrations, anything that helps the defenders of Stalingrad. The missions are brutal. The Germans concentrate anti-aircraft guns around the city. The sky is filled with flak, but the night witches keep flying. Nadezhda Popova, one of the regiment's top pilots, describes a mission over Stalingrad. The searchlights caught us, blinding. I couldn't see anything. Flak everywhere. I could hear the shells exploding. Feel the shock waves. My navigator Katya kept calling out directions. Calm. Like we were on a training flight, we dropped our bombs. I dove hard, got out of the searchlights. We made it back. Later, we counted. 42 holes in the aircraft. 42. We patched them and flew again that night. Nadezhda Popova flew 852 combat missions, more than almost any other pilot in the regiment. She survived the war, but not everyone did. October 1942, Senior Lieutenant. Yekaterina Ryabova and her navigator are hit by anti-aircraft fire. Their aircraft catches fire. Fabric and wood burn fast. Ryabova tries to land, crashes. Both women die in the wreckage. The regiment loses aircraft regularly. Engine failures, combat damage, weather, pilot error. Flying obsolete aircraft in combat every night takes a toll. But for every loss, the survivors fly more missions. Work harder, push further, because they're proving something. That women can fight, can kill, can win. The night witches don't just bomb. They harass. German troops need sleep. The night witches make sure they don't get it. Sometimes they fly over German positions and drop nothing. Just the sound, the fear, the anticipation. German soldiers stay awake, waiting for bombs that never come, exhausted, on edge. Then the real attack comes. Hours later, when they've finally relaxed, psychological warfare at its finest. 43. The war turns. Stalingrad falls to the Soviets. The German army retreats. The Red Army advances. The night witches advance with them. They bomb retreating German columns, supply depots, bridges, anything that slows the German withdrawal. The missions get longer, more dangerous. The Germans are desperate, fighting harder. But the night witches are relentless. One mission stands out. March 1943. Navigator Rufina Gasheva and pilot Natasha Mechlin are attacking a German headquarters. They approach, cut the engine, glide in. Searchlights find them. Flak opens up, heavy, concentrated. They're hit. Fuel tank punctured. Fuel streaming out behind them. One spark and they're dead. Gasheva drops the bombs anyway. Direct hit. Mechlin restarts the engine. It catches. Somehow, they limp back to base. Running on fumes, they land. The aircraft has less than a gallon of fuel left. Both women are awarded the Hero of the Soviet Union, the highest honor. They're 23 years old. By 1944, the night witches are legends, not just in the Soviet Union. The Germans know them, fear them, respect them. Male Soviet pilots initially mocked them, women flying crop dusters. A joke. But after seeing them in action, the mockery stops. One male fighter pilot says, "Those women have more courage than most men I know." flying those death traps every night. I wouldn't do it. The regiment continues operations through 1944 and into 1945. They support the liberation of Crimea, Belarus, Poland, the push into Germany itself. The missions never stop. Every night, multiple sorties. By war's end, the 508th Night Bomber Regiment will have flown over 30,000 combat sorties dropped, 23,000 tons of bombs produced, 23 heroes of the Soviet Union, and they'll do it with only 32 confirmed losses in combat. 32. Women who never came back. In 1945, Germany surrenders. The war in Europe is over. The Night Witches fly their last combat mission, then return to base. They've survived. Most of them. They climb out of their battered Po-2s, exhausted, relieved, proud. 3 years of combat. 3 years of flying every night. 3 years of fear and loss and determination. It's over. But victory brings new challenges. The Soviet Union begins demobilizing. Soldiers return home. The Night Witches are told to return to civilian life. No parades. No recognition beyond their medals. The male pilots get to stay in the military. The women are sent home. Some are told to go back to being teachers, factory workers. Wives, Nadezhda Popova. 8152 missions, hero of the Soviet Union, goes back to flying civilian aircraft. Irina Rakobolskaya, chief of staff of the regiment, becomes a physics professor. Others fade into obscurity. The Soviet Union doesn't talk much about the Night Witches after the war. For decades, their story is barely known outside the Soviet Union. The women live quiet lives. Some marry, have families, work normal jobs. They don't talk much about the war. When they do, people don't believe them. You flew combat missions? In biplanes? Every night? Sounds like propaganda, but they did. And they have the medals to prove it. The Cold War ends. The Soviet Union collapses. Finally, in the 1990s and 2000s, historians start paying attention. Books are written. Documentaries made. The Night Witches are rediscovered. Veterans are interviewed. In their 70s and 80s now. They tell their stories. The world finally learns about the women who flew biplanes into hell. Nadezhda Popova, interviewed in 2009. People ask me if I was scared. Of course I was scared. Every single night, but we had a job to do. Our country was fighting for survival. We couldn't sit at home. The men who said women couldn't fight, we proved them wrong. Not with words, with action. We flew, we bombed, we survived. That's our answer. Nadezhda Popova died in 2013, age 91. She flew more combat missions than almost any pilot in history, male or female. Today, the Night Witches are remembered. In Russia, monuments stand in their honor. Schools are named after them. Their story is taught. In the West, they're less known, but their legend grows. Books, films, even video games feature them because their story is extraordinary. Think about what they did. They flew obsolete biplanes, open cockpits, fabric wings, no armor, no guns, against one of the most powerful militaries in history, every night, multiple missions. For 3 years, they were teenagers and young women, some barely out of school. They loaded their own bombs, repaired their own aircraft, flew in temperatures that would freeze your hands to the controls. They were shot at, hunted. Some were killed, but they kept flying. Not because they had to. They could have quit, transferred, found safer roles. They flew because they chose to, because their country needed them, because they wanted to prove women could fight, because their sisters were flying next to them. The Night Witches weren't given the best equipment. They made do with what they had. They weren't given recognition during the war. They earned it anyway. They weren't expected to succeed. They succeeded beyond anyone's imagination. 30,000 combat sorties. 23. heroes of the Soviet Union, and a legacy that will never be forgotten. The Polikarpov Po-2, the crop duster that became a weapon of war, slow, fragile, obsolete even in 1942, but in the hands of the night witches, it became one of the most effective harassment weapons of World War II. The Germans called them night witches, Nachthexen. It was meant as an insult. The women took it as a badge of honor, because they were witches, appearing in the darkness, bringing fire and death, then vanishing before anyone could stop them. Magic, number, skill, courage, determination. If you ever visit Moscow, you can see a Po-2 in the Central Armed Forces Museum. Fabric wings, wood frame, tiny cockpit. It looks like a toy, like something that should be in a barn, not a war museum. But it's there because women flew it into combat 30,000 times. Stand next to it. Look at how small it is, how fragile. Then imagine flying it, at night, in winter, through searchlights and flak, with bombs on your lap, then landing, refueling, and doing it again, and again, until dawn. That's what the night witches did, every single night, for 3 years. Today, there are no night witches left. The last veteran, Irina Rakobolskaya, died in 2016. Aged 93, the women who flew those missions, who lived that story, are gone, but their legacy remains. They proved that courage has no gender, that determination can overcome any obstacle, that ordinary people can do extraordinary things when they choose to. The night witches flew obsolete biplanes against the German army and won. They weren't supposed to succeed. They did anyway. This has been the story of the 588th Night Bomber Regiment, the Night Witches. The women who flew into darkness and brought hell with them. Remember their names. Remember their courage. Remember that sometimes the most powerful weapons aren't made of steel. They're made of determination,